So in this lesson, we're going to take a brief look at TypeScript, a very quick introduction to TypeScript and how it works and how we're going to use it in our application. And just to run through some of the TypeScript rocks, it's brilliant and TypeScript is annoying. I'm just going to run through the different pros and cons and why we're using TypeScript in our application. And first of all, strong typing is important. It's very easy in JavaScript to make some silly typos somewhere in your code that breaks your application, and then you spend hours trying to resolve the problem. Now, TypeScript automatically prevents those kinds of silly mistakes, and it's going to tell you as you code where your mistakes are. So it gives you some protection, some insurance against silly mistakes. Also, TypeScript is object-orientated, and if you come from an object-orientated background, then it feels quite natural to work in TypeScript. We get better IntelliSense with our code editors, and VS Code particularly has incredible support for TypeScript. Other code editors do as well. Visual Studio does, I believe, and so does Rider as well. They all support TypeScript, but VS Code is especially good with TypeScript. We also have access to access modifiers. We can declare our code as either private or public or protected. And we get access to future JavaScript features. Certain things that in React haven't been released yet have or possibly have made it into TypeScript. And because our TypeScript code gets compiled into JavaScript, then we can use any future JavaScript feature that we want inside TypeScript. And our TypeScript compiler is going to take care of the compilation for us. As I mentioned earlier, it's going to catch those silly mistakes in development that could potentially cost you hours of your time. Also, the community in TypeScript is really big now, and almost every JavaScript library has a corresponding TypeScript definition file. And a TypeScript definition file is what describes the different classes and interfaces that are present and available in that particular library. And also, by using these TypeScript definition files, we can go to the definition of whatever class we're using and get documentation from right inside our editor, as opposed to going out to the web and getting the documentation from there. And it's easy to learn. If you know JavaScript, you pretty much almost know TypeScript. It's just the typings that we need to use that you just need to be aware of and use in your application. And with TypeScript, you can always use as much TypeScript or as little as you want. There are ways to escape using TypeScript, and we'll take a look at that as well. Now, there are occasions where TypeScript is annoying, and there is no doubt about it, we're going to be writing more upfront code. And it's one of those things that you don't need it until you need it. It's a little bit like insurance. If you buy insurance for your car and you drive your car around for a year without crashing, then that feels like a waste of money. But one crash in your car and you don't have insurance, you'll wish you had insurance. And it's the same philosophy here. One silly mistake can cost us hours of our time, but if TypeScript catches that immediately, then it's almost paid for itself. Third-party libraries, I put them in the pro and I put them in the cons, because not all third-party libraries have TypeScript support, but there are ways around to deal with this. And whilst I thought this was a problem a year or two ago, it's a rapidly diminishing problem, and it's very easy to work around if a third-party library doesn't have a TypeScript definition file. There is also a huge repository of TypeScript definition files created by the community, so if a third-party library we use doesn't come with a TypeScript definition file, we can probably get it anyway. Another thing that might be annoying is the strict mode of TypeScript is strict. And when you first start using TypeScript, it can be a little bit infuriating, the amount of warnings you'll see that you'll have to correct to go through it. But once you get used to it, it really does become a joy to work with. And in order to talk about this in more detail, I'm just going to run through a demo of just an introduction of TypeScript.